Yesterday, Brandon and I started a new series here at Madison called Esther, God's Quiet Hand of Providence. And one of the things that we mentioned about this very rich book is a detail that's important to mention. It's this, that God's name is not specifically mentioned anywhere in this text. But although God's name is not specifically mentioned, one of the things that we talked about is that it is very obvious that his providential hand was everywhere in this text. In fact, there's a lot of things that as you go through this text that you start to think that was just a coincidence. Well, I think the book of Esther helps us understand this important truth that's also true in our lives, is those little moments that seem like coincidences, turns out that those are actually God's purposes. And that while it may seem, because his name's not specifically mentioned, that God is absent from the story of Esther, he's not. He's not absent from Esther's story, but we also said he's not absent from your story either. And in those times where maybe God isn't mentioned at work, or maybe God's not mentioned at school, it should actually cause us to look for God even more intently to see his name. And so to kind of sum it up, you can watch the message from yesterday to kind of see more of the details, but the king throws this massive party, and it's about a 6-month long party to show off his power, to show off his might. Most people believe to possibly get ready for another war. And in the middle of him being drunk with the wine he was drinking, he decides to call his queen in to show her off and how beautiful she is. Well, Vashti did something that evidently other people had never done to the king, and that was this. She refused. And because she refused, he sent her away, banished her. And then that was kind of our clue that now we're going to meet this young woman named Esther. And what's interesting that while all this is going on during this 6-month festival, and right after that, the king, between chapters 1 and chapter 2, we get the clue that he was getting ready and even going to certain battles, and he had lost those battles. And still all the while, she has no clue that eventually her path is going to cross with one of the most powerful men on the face of the earth. And so we looked at all these little details that we saw yesterday in that message to see that God's hand was behind every single thing. But one of the major ideas that I wanted you to see yesterday was that God can do very spiritual things through secular kings. That his hands are not tied by the character of the person that's in office. That God can do something special through a Christian president, but he can also do something through an evil dictator. And if you and I fail to recognize that powerful truth, what we end up doing is doing something that's so dangerous, and that's put God in a box, but it also causes us to be closed in and not to be salt and light that God has called us to be. And so we see in this very rich book that God's hand was everywhere. Even in the fact that one of Esther's name meant morning star, which is symbolic of the fact that yes, this star is here, but there's also even another one that's getting ready to come, which is a foreshadowing of the sun to rise, which of course is Jesus Christ. But the one thing that I wanted you to think about this week is this. I want you to thank God for what he's doing behind the scenes in your life. Because sometimes we forget that God has opened up so many doors. He provided so many opportunities. He's told us no with things, told us yes. He's protected us from stuff that we don't even know about. Thank God for that. But the other thing that I want you to do is to look intimately in those different moments in your life to see where God's providential hand really is. And I think once you see his hand in those things, then you'll start to see, just like in the story of Esther, God's not absent from her life, and he's not absent from yours either. I hope you guys have a great week, and we look forward to seeing you on Wednesday.